This is chapter number 8, Civilizing the Native and Educating the Nation. This means native, we are talking about Indians, educating the Indians, civilizing the Indians. So the question arises that whatever we have seen in British rule, it was around 200 plus. From 1750 you can start, and from 200 plus years, the Rajas, Nawabs, how do they got affected by British rule? We talked about that. We talked about the farmers, the peasants, how they got affected in this British rule, or what are the effects, and the tribals, the Adivasis, the Janjatis. But what happened to their education? Shiksha. What happened to the lives of the students at this time? We need to know this also. Because they have, first they came for trade, then they said, we are here to rule you. Then they ruled. And then they also thought one thing, that we are not only for trading and rule, we are here on a cultural mission. That is, this is a Sanskritic mission. This is our duty to civilize the natives of this country, to civilize the indigenous people of this country, this subcontinent, because they are already civilized. British and Europeans are already civilized. They need to change the customs and values, riti rivaj, manyataएं, whatever we were following at that time, whatever we had in terms of thoughts, in terms of opinions, in terms of the religion. So what changes did they introduced? How do they wanted to civilize, and how did they work to civilize us? And they called us good subjects. Good subjects means we were not humans, we were subjects. They were our malik, they were our guardians, they were our, say, the rulers. Okay? So this is how they thought. What is the perspective? In British perspective, what was the education? How did the British saw the education? Because they have seen education, or they thought education with the European perspective. In 200 years of that span, what we have seen here is, whenever we have a kid, whenever he goes to school, he'll go, there will be a van, and or you can also take him to the school. From 8 to 3 he's going to study, and then he'll come back, he'll go to the tuition, or you will teach him, and then he will do some homework, then he'll do some TV, watch some TV, and then this circle will repeat. So this is what you have seen now. In between you give exam, in between you go for assignment. There are so many things happening in this school time. So what we are seeing today, this kind of culture, this kind of education, Christian school, public school, the government school, the Kendriya Vidyalayas, the Navodaya Vidyalayas. So all these parivartan, all these changes, how Indians reacted, how the British forced or easily paced these changes, and how Indians were educated. The tradition of Orientalism. First, let me tell you about Orientalism. Who were Orientalist people? This in Hindi is called as Pracyavadi. Those people with a mindset that they respect their culture and their language. Along with this, they also respect others' culture and the values and the opinions. Indian languages, Indian culture, you can call it as the Indian languages, Sanskrit, Hindi, the Arabi, and at that time the Persian, Farsi was used, because it was just after Mughal, these Britishers have came. Arabic, all these languages, the culture related to all these languages, they were respecting it, and they wanted to propagate it, to strengthen it. These were called as Orientalism. The person who is going to come, we'll talk about him. He is William Jones. He was a linguist. Linguist means an individual who knows and who studies various languages, several languages. So, linguist is Bhashavid, the master of various languages. So, we are starting with 1783. What happened? William Jones. This man, both of the pictures are of him only. William Jones, he arrived in Calcutta, Bengal. So he came to Calcutta on the post of junior judge at Supreme Court. You know the Regulating Act, because of this Supreme Court was established. So he came as a junior judge, and this Supreme Court was set up by company. So William Jones, he was a great linguist, Bhashavid. That means he was knowing so many languages. He learned Greek and Latin at Oxford. It's a very big university. Greek, Latin, then French and English. Also, he learned Arabic from a friend. Persian, he is also learning Persian. In this picture also, he is seen learning Persian. So he was knowing various languages. So he also started spending so much hours or many hours with Pandits. And Pandits, we know Pandits, the Brahmins, they are the master of the Sanskrit language. So he was also learning from Pandits the Sanskrit language, the intricacies of Sanskrit language, the grammar, the poetry in Sanskrit. So basically, in a short span of time, he was studying about, or he started studying about, the ancient Indian text and the Prachin Indian text, ancient Indian text related to law, related to philosophy, related to religion, related to politics, even the morality, mathematics, that is arithmetic, algebra, arithmetic, and also medicine. And there are various other sciences William Jones started reading, and all these with the perspective of ancient Indian text, whatever Indian text has given us, whatever is written at that time, all these he wanted to learn, and he learned. He wanted to learn, he wanted to understand. Now, William Jones, we saw him that he discovered something. He saw that this is not only my interest. My interest is shared by various British officials who are staying or living or working in Calcutta. So his idea, his thought, his interest are common with various other people. And at that same time, there are two Englishmen notably. First name is very big name, Henry Thomas Colebrook. We'll call him as Colebrook. And the other person is Nathaniel Halhed. Nathaniel Halhed. So these two English gentlemen, they were quite busy in trying to find out the ancient Indian heritage, culture, Indian text. So they were interested in it, and they were doing work of discovering these all heritage which India had. And they were also doing one more thing. They were translating Sanskrit and Persian work into English. They were doing different work, but they were translating also the Sanskrit and Persian work, ancient work, into England, this English language. Halhed, if you remember, he has written law. The court, first of all, when it was there, when the district magistrate was first established, so the laws were different for different states. So there was a common law being made, and he translated it for English so that English judge can understand. Halhed. So now Henry Thomas Colebrook and Nathaniel Halhed, and the initiative was from William Jones. So now William Jones and all these people, what they did, they combinedly, they set up the Asiatic Society of Bengal. In picture also you see, this is the Royal Asiatic Society of Bengal, and who established it? These gentlemen. The basic one was William Jones. On his initiative, this was being set up. So basically it was about all the Indian culture, heritage, all the different books and different, the Sahitya, it was there. And they also started a journal, and that journal was called as Asiatic Researches. So first thing, they set up this society, and also they started printing a journal called Asiatic Researches. Now Jones and Colebrook, now they have a very peculiar attitude towards India. They had a great respect for Indian ancient culture, not only for India, also for the West. That is Indian culture, West culture. They both have a deep respect, deep honor for these cultures. So they thought, and they said that Indian civilization attained the glory, the peak of the glory, that the highest, you can say the zenith of the glory. But because of certain reason, subsequently it declined, it came down. So they respected Indian glory, Indian culture, they honored it. So in order to understand India or any country, they said it is very necessary to understand the sacred and legal texts and to discover and to learn them, to understand them. This is Jones and Colebrook idea was. If you want to understand country, you need to know about the sacred and legal text of the ancient period. And if you see in India, we have basically that time also 14%, right now we have Muslims and around 81% Hindu. So Hindu and Muslims, the ideas and laws of the Hindus and Muslims can only be learned when we discover the sacred and legal text and understand them and learn them. And then only we can have a basis of development in India. That is, they are there to develop. They are on a cultural mission. So they want this to develop India. Okay. Now, Jones and Colebrook, because they were understanding their meaning of ancient text, they're actually discovering them and trying to understand them and even translating them. As I said, these two, and along with Hellhead, they were translating them as well. Now, why they were doing this project? The project was, first says that the British people will understand the Indian culture. That is why we are discovering this project, is just because we want British to know about Indian culture. So British, when they will learn about Indian culture, they will be able to govern this country. And also the Indians, they will rediscover their own heritage. They will learn about the glory. They will learn about their past. So there are two things. Why were they doing is, the project reason was that Britishers as well as the Indians will know what they were, what they had, and the glory they had. Okay. So these all will be known. And now, how this will help them? This will help them, the Britishers, to be two things: guardians also and masters also. That is, they will become the guardians and the masters of the Indian culture, Indian people, right? So this was their basis of that project. So many officials, they also said, they argued that this Indian way of learning, Indian culture, Indian text, we need to propagate or promote it. The Western learning is not fit for Indian, the subcontinent. This is only, we call it as Orientalism. This is Orientalist. Okay. That is how they force, or they argued that we need to encourage the establishment of institution where people can study and the British can study the ancient Indian text, and also teach Sanskrit and also Persian literature and poetry. So Sanskrit and Persian, all the literature and poetry, if Hindu and Muslims are taught their culture, their text, their language, then they are familiar with it. So they will start valuing it and treasuring it. They will think that we are learning and we are reading the same thing which we are and which we are supposed to do, rather than giving them a different word, different language, and altogether different perspective. Okay, and that is how we can make a part or a place in the hearts of the Indians, the hearts of the native. This is how. So when this discussion took place and this promotion took place, actually it happened. The institution was established. It was Colebrook, it was William Jones, Harry Head. So in Calcutta, there was a madrasa which was being set up, and this happened in 1781. In 1781, in Calcutta, a madrasa was being established, and this madrasa was for the study of Arabic, the Persian and Islamic law. The Arabic, the Persian and the Islamic law. And not only the madrasa, there was a Hindu college in Banaras. So in 1791, a Hindu college, especially for the Sanskrit literature, Sanskrit text, it was being established in 1791. And basically it was a Sanskrit college. Learning of ancient Sanskrit text, and also this will help in the proper administration of this country. So because of the effort which started with William Jones, held by Colebrook and others, that is how this institution came up. But the thing was, there were various other officials also. They were against the idea of Orientalist, Pracyavadi Soch. They were against it. They were very critical about it. And what was the idea of the critics? The first person I'll talk about is James Mill. Then I'll come to the second one, Thomas Babington Macaulay. So we'll start with James Mill first, and they all were the critics of Orientalism. I'm talking about early 1800 plus. So various British officials, BO, they were very critical, quite critical about the Orientalist vision of learning. They were saying that the East, because England is here, Europe is here, Arab is here, India is here. So this Indian Arabs comes to the east of these countries. So they were saying that the knowledge of the East is whatever literature, ancient texts were there in India and Arab. They were saying they are full of errors and unscientific. There is no science involved. They are full with errors. It was written non-seriously, and it was very light-hearted. Okay, there was no effort put in, no scientific thought. So now it is very wrong. They were saying, these critics were saying, why you are wasting money on these madrasas and this Banaras college or the study of Arabic and Sanskrit language and literature? Don't put your money or waste your money in this. There is no use, because Eastern culture is full of errors. So the first person which came, I would like to highlight, is James Mill. James Mill was the first to attack the Orientalist, and he said that why are we trying to do these things? We don't want them to win a place in. We don't want a place in their heart. That is why we are teaching them what they wanted. We will teach them what we wanted. So the aim of education, according to James Mill, is the education should be useful and practical. That is, Indians should first be made familiar with these scientific and technical advances. Whatever has happened in West, scientifically and technically, the Indians should learn that. And this is our duty to let them learn that, or allow them to learn that. So when they will learn this, when they will go for Western learning, then they will know the poetry and sacred literature. Okay. But the poetry and sacred literature of Orients or Orientalists, this is not good. This is what James Mill said. Now after that, there is one more person came, and he was more critical than James Mill. By 1830s, the attack became very stronger and sharper. And the most important and outspoken influential person was Thomas Babington Macaulay, the person after James Mill who attacked these Orientalist thoughts were Thomas Babington Macaulay. He is Thomas Babington Macaulay. So he was very mukhar. So he said that India is asabhya. It's an uncivilized country, barbar country. We need to civilize it. This is our duty to civilize them. Okay. So he said that if we take our library, only one shelf, one part of the shelf, this will contain all the content of Indian and Arabic literature. That is, there is no strength, there is no valor, there is no power of any literature of India or Arabs. So what you are making, wasting money or public money in promoting this Oriental learning, that is madrasas and all these Banaras college, he clearly said that we need to put English at most top, and we need to make this as the medium of teaching English language. When Indians will know English, they will be able to read the finest, the best literature that the West or the world has produced. Only then they will be able to learn. By Sanskrit, Hindi, they won't be able to learn. Okay? And they will be aware of, Indians will be aware of, what are the developments in Western science and philosophy. Also, we will be able to change the taste of the people, will change, will civilize the people, and the values and the culture we will be able to change through English, through Western learning. So Macaulay actually put down all these minutes, and because of Macaulay's minute, because he was influential, high-powered, ranked, so English Education Act of 1835 was introduced. The decision was English is now the medium of instruction for higher education. For all the higher education, the English Education Act of 1835, which was based on Macaulay's minute, was saying that English will be the medium. English will be the medium. And the promotion of these Oriental institution like the Calcutta's Madrasa or Banaras Sanskrit College, they will be stopped. According to them, according to Macaulay, these places, these institutions are the temples of darkness. There is only darkness there. And I also said, because of this, the textbook were being published in English. Okay? So there are certain things I need to tell you. First thing is Orientalist. Those people who have good knowledge of their language and culture of Asia. So those all have the culture, knowledge of Asia are Orientalist. Munshi is a person who can read, write and teach Persian, Farsi. Vernacular means apart from English, whatever language is there. It can be any language. Sanskrit, Arabic, Persian, all these languages they called as vernacular languages. Vernacular, right? So this is vernacular. So these are the words being used here, and sometimes they are asked also. So it's my duty to tell you. Here is a picture. This is a monument of Warren Hastings. You have to tell me who was Warren Hastings. Was he the first Governor General or Viceroy? You have to tell me. Okay. So Warren Hastings. And this is 1830. This is at Victoria Memorial in Calcutta. And Warren Hastings was one of the key figure because he was the supporter of Orientalist. So you have to tell me who is Warren Hastings. And he is standing in the middle. Left you see, here is a Pandit. Right you see a Munshi, Persian scholar. So all these were being shown just because of the Orientalism approach. So they were talking about all the languages. And he is actually Warren Hastings is believed that his initiative, because of his initiative, Calcutta Madrasa was being set up. Because they all believe in the culture and respect other cultures also. Education for commerce. This we are going to learn in the next discussion. Okay. Till then, thank you so much. Take care of yourself.